Here's two interesting facts about Toyota. Usually they make sensible small cars or basic cars that are meant to be reliable and not really flashy or fancy. That's reserved for Lexus, and let alone a V12 Toyota. They're usually V8s, and now they're even going away. But did you know that this car, which doesn't even look like a Toyota, is actually the top of the line Toyota Century V12 that makes your fanciest Lexus feel like an economy car? And in today's video, we're going to take you on a proper tour around this thing because it is truly amazing. This is a 1999 second generation Toyota Century. And initially when you look at it, it just looks like, oh, what is this taxi cab? Because it definitely has a taxi cab look. But that is so far from the truth. And the best part is, this generation Century ran from 1997 all the way to 2016. Exactly the same look. And you'd be wondering, this is typical Toyota. I mean, they make a car and they just don't change it. Let's just keep going with it. But oh, you are so far from the truth, folks. This car is ahead of its time, and dare I say, this 1999 car have some things that old, middle, or modern cars never will have. Let's walk around it and I'll show you. First, look at this understated look. I mean, this doesn't really have a very special look. It's very understated, very Japanese, humble. That is the biggest thing. And it looks a lot like any Crown from this generation. But we start looking at the small details is when things come alive. Look at this insignia. Tell me there is more insignia. So Toyota in Japan, they have insignias, they don't have model names. So tell me there is a more over-the-top insignia. And just in case you didn't see that was not flashy enough, there's another one right here. If I'm not mistaken, and don't quote me on this, there's a T and a C. That's what it looks to me. I'm assuming that's what it is. If I'm incorrect, please correct me so we can understand this mystery. And then, here's the best part. This is a plastic bumper. This is actual chrome, not plastic coated. No, this is actual chrome. And that is just, they don't make cars like, imagine in 2016 we have a car with actual chrome bumper at the bottom. That is how they did things. And then there is this that people call the flagpole. It's actually a parking guide, because this is a right-hand drive car and this is your corner and you won't see it. This will help you. But even this has a little insignia on it. This is actually an accessory that we installed on this car. That when it came in the shop, didn't have this. And then the mirrors. So the Century can come with the wing mirrors or the door mirrors. This particular one has the wing mirrors. They are super cool. There's a lot of Japanese cars that have this. They actually fold. Not fold, but they move in case you hit the car. That is how they are designed. They are interesting, these mirrors, because certain situations you like them, I like them better. Certain situations are like, a little too far. If you don't have very good eyes, they're too far. But they're always in your view. You don't have to turn around your eyes away from the road to see them. They're always there. You can see them, and that's the cool part. Then we look at the wheels. I mean, these are tiny little wheels by today's standards. But again, 2016, that was not too far ago. That was not too long ago when they still had the same wheel. That's just how they do things. And then we started looking at the finer details. This is not some cheap sticker that is just stuck here just to make it look cool. This is an actual panel that goes all the way in to the end that contains that. And then we look here, the side. There is no features, nothing. I mean, this hood barely have the crease on it. That's it. This is not a show-off car, and for a very good reason. Look at the side. Nothing here. Just a flat panel. At the bottom you have some more of that beautiful chrome. Just a super understated look. I love it. It just has a very different look than anything you'll find. Some people call it boring. You're very mistaken. Then, here's that insignia again with the most important part. This is a V12. This is the only Toyota V12 ever, and not throughout the life of the Century. It's only this generation. Previous generation didn't have a V12. The next generation has a V8. So this is the only Century that is a V12 this generation. And we come around. I mean, just look at this. Do you notice that it doesn't say Toyota anywhere? Because this is not just a Toyota. This is a proper Century. Then we look at the insignia again here. Beautiful. And the best part is, this is not just some cheapo plastic. This is actually aluminum, brushed aluminum. And then it just says Century. Say anything else. Everything, almost everything about this exterior, just what makes you wonder. This thing looks like it's a very old car. 2016, they still made this exactly the same. That's very interesting, but that's the point. See, this car was meant for dignitaries, or a version of this was for the Japanese royal family. They don't want to be a show-off. See, the Japanese have their own way of thinking, and I think it's unique. Their show-off is different. Their show-off is in their nobility, or kind of origin. So having an understated car where you're not showing off and being flashy, like we love to do over here on this side of the pond, that's their way of being classy. This car screams that. Because as we make our way a little bit more inside, I just want you to look at this inside. Initially, at first glance, it's just an old car. I mean, fabric seats. Everything looks, yeah, we have some wood. That's nice. Except that is so far from the truth. Very far from the truth, folks. Because these fabric seats that you are looking at, they're actually wool. And I've very few things in my life I have felt that feel like this. This is one of them. And oh, look at this. Grandma's lace. It's actually handmade, folks. And she's just, as old as they are, they feel amazing. They haven't even been discolored, nothing. And not because the previous owner took care of it. No, this is how well made things are here. And then there is a statement that we'll make about the Century. See, you look at the steering wheel, it's actually the same steering wheel from an LS400 without the insignia. But let me correct that statement. The LS400 has a steering wheel from the Century, not the other way around. Look at that. But it's not the same, because the leather on the steering wheel, just after all this time, literally feels brand new. And that's how they did these. And then we look at the door. This is real wood that had aged very well. Again, you have the wool here, some leather, which feels very nice. And then this is all brushed aluminum. At this time of era, we did not have brushed aluminum in cars. Now we're starting to see it. Even the little handle here. And then we walk around. Look at this. Brushed aluminum on the pillar here. And then the door handle. This is a metal door handle. Listen to that noise it makes. Not your little plasticky one from the 90s from Toyota that break. But to really appreciate this car, let's first start in the front and then we'll walk in the back. Because the back is the area you want to be in the Century. Let's first look at the seat. So this is the chauffeur's seat. Not really chauffeur-driven cars, but look at this. They actually have springs in them. You see that? It's just a little stuff. You look at it, oh, it's just a cute fabric seat from a Corolla. It's not. This is wool, folks. And then you get inside and we start looking. This is the area of the chauffeur. And I don't recall the last time I've been in a car that was not very old, let alone 2016. It would look very similar to this with a bigger screen here. Look at this dash. It's a flat dash. It doesn't have any like divots or anything, because again, this is meant to be functional so you can serve the people in the back, not really the front. Very simple shifter. You can move this seat, the passenger seat, from here. So, because this is the right-hand drive, so the boss would sit in the back on that side, so the driver can move the seat to get it out of their way. Very simple interior. You notice that? It's like a humble interior. Again, you get another brushed aluminum panel here. Look at the vents, the attention to detail, and the little vents. They have the chrome detail here, and I don't think this is plastic, folks. It doesn't feel like it. I think it is actual chrome, and that is the best part. And then the HVAC controls and the radio, of course. This is an older one, so you have the cassette player and everything, but very basic controls. Again, it's meant to be this way. And if you pay your attention here, this is for the rear curtain. Speaking of the curtain, let's look at the most important place in the Century, which is the back. This is the place to be in the Century, and we start by soft closed doors in the rear only. It's just how they deemed it, I guess. The chauffeur can close his own door. Look at this giant handle here, which is wrapped in a very nice leather. I mean, this leather is aged so well. It's unbelievable. I love this big handle. Just to give you if you're reclined back, you can grab it, or if you're forward, then you have your own HVAC vent here, lights, 2 lights, and then you have a mirror here, so you can look at yourself. The best part is, it's not just the stuff, it's the materials. We are now starting to see luxury cars start with really high-end materials on the headliner, but this one takes it to the next level, because if you look here, usually cars will end here and the rest is plastic. This has a chrome ring, and then the rest is wool all the way down, and then carpet, and look how thick that carpet is. That's how they do things the Century way. But this is the most important seat, and right now it looks kind of cramped. Although generally, it's not always the case, but folks in Japan, they are like me, on the shorter side. They're not super tall. But here is the interesting thing. You notice here there's absolutely nothing. I mean, we do have some massage seat here and a window and a seat heater. There's nothing else. That is not the case. Again, we're going after the humble look, because if I roll this down, it's just an armrest. But then we go to stage 1. All your seat controls are right here. Isn't that something? But wait, doesn't even end there. If we open this one, we have even more seat controls. This is for the HVAC. You even have your own little karaoke thing, in case you want to go into karaokeing, whatever you want to call that. And then you have your own, very cool, I'm going to call it a Walkman, but it's actually a cassette player, portable, with Century written on it. You can connect it to the car, and you can play the music from here through the speakers of the car. Very cool. But it doesn't even end there. Wait, so you just have a cassette player? I mean, most modern cars at the time, or most cars at the time, had that. Well, and then we pull this down. You have your own TV here. Full-on TV with a remote that comes up. Full-size remote. But it doesn't even end there. And you have 2 more vents here. This is all wood. It's very nice. This leather is just over the top. But it doesn't even end there. Here, you have a little storage area. Put your items. And underneath it is one of the things that this car originally did not have as an option. And we installed it here in the shop. VHS player, which actually works. If you are not from this generation, that even remembers what these are, let me just tell you one thing. My wedding was on a VHS. We had to convert it to CD. And for our younger crowds, if you didn't know how our life revolved around, it revolved around these guys. This is how we watched the movie. And now we are done with the history lesson. Check this out. I'm gonna put our VHS on. There it is. Then we open our TV. Now, this beautiful movie is Monsters Inc., but can't show you how it's playing. It's actually playing, which is very cool. For the older crowds, including myself, this brings a lot of nostalgia. Best part is, we'll talk a little bit about the owner of this car, because he truly deserves a mention here. He wanted this. I mean, who uses VHS in 2024? But he wanted the car to have all the options. So he specifically found this, got it rebuilt and reconditioned, and we installed it, because this is an option on this car, that you can buy this, just like the parking guide in the front. He bought this, and it works actually semi-difficult to install because of the stature of this car. You got to be careful with everything, but we got it installed. It even fits perfectly. Even this door closes. What a beautiful place to be in this one. But wait, there's one more thing that is very important here. What about the comfort and privacy of the boss? The boss who sits here, which also has seats that have springs in them. Well, for that, let's get back our little friend here. You can move your seat here, of course, recline the back and whatnot. That's all cool stuff. But what about the front seat? We'd like that to disappear for a bit, because you can actually open this back of the seat and put your feet through, and now you have a full recliner. Just one note, the driver is a human being. Make sure you have fresh socks when you do that. I'm guessing if somebody buys this car, we don't have that problem, but just a nice courtesy. And then the most important thing here, which is this lace. Some folks will laugh at this, but folks, this is a very high quality handmade stuff. It is beautiful. Maybe not fashion, agreeing with fashion or whatnot, but just I appreciate the craftsmanship of it. Not exactly my style. The curtains. These are manual curtains, so you can let the world look at you, but not too much. You know, we still want some privacy. But the rear one is power operated, which is super cool. It's just this car, I mean, we could talk about it for ages, but I want to show you one last thing. If you come around, I want to show them a couple things about it. You notice most cars will have a big bump here. That's where the frame ends. This one is flat. That is something unique about the Century. It is a beautiful. This is, folks, if you see one of these cars and you think, oh, what is that old strange looking car? I hope you know what you're looking at, because this video does not do it any justice. You see this in person and you just drive it and appreciate the finer details about it and the level of insanity that they went to make this not a show-off car, but something truly unique. It just, you can't appreciate it until you've experienced it. And I've been absolutely privileged by owners trusting us to work on these cars, because they're very rare and somewhat unique on every level to work on, that we're able to experience them, work on them, and really enjoy them with the owners, because they're just beautiful. Now we're going to take a look underneath this car and tell you why it's in the shop, but let's go look under the hood, because that is the, at least for us car guys, this is the most important part. This is a special part of this car. Folks, this is the only Toyota V12 you will ever see, and the last. They don't, well, now we're getting rid of V8s too, so I don't think you'll ever see another one. For lack of a better word, here's how I would describe this engine. It is every bit of why people buy V12. You know, V8s are great, they drive great and everything and all that, but until you've driven a car with a V12, you will not understand why we need a V12. Because really, you can get the same power and the smoothness and all the stuff from a V8. But a V12 has something about it. Nothing runs like these. How smooth they are and how effortless. Just everything is effort. This doesn't make a lot of power, but the power it makes, it's effortless. You rev this standing, it doesn't shake the car at all. I mean, you don't even hear it. That's how amazing it is. And something about V12s, they have a distinct sound they make when you start them. Every single V12 does this because of the way how many cylinders there are. Let's take a listen to that. Isn't that the most beautiful engine ever? I love this engine. I love working on it. It's not very complicated because, of course, it's old school, but they're just beautiful. Some of the highlights here, you have two mass airflows, and if you look at these are the old school mass airflows. I wonder if the newer cars, as we get into 2016, still uses these. And then the way they have the coolant bottle here, and then this pipe is something I don't see them doing anymore. You notice this pipe, this hose comes out here, goes into a metal pipe that is wrapped here and then goes all the way to another hose, then connects to the radiator. This, of course, has a hydro fan. This does not have a regular mechanical fan or one that whirs out, makes noise. They want this quiet. They put a hydro fan here, and it's such a beautiful. The hydro fan is one of the coolest inventions that never caught on with Toyota, unfortunately. I love them. I think they're really unique. I mean, you don't hear them run at all. They work the best. And what a beautiful car. Let's put it in the lift. Let's check it out underneath because there's a few interesting stuff there. Let's take a look underneath the beautiful Toyota Century. And the best part is, this is where you can see that this is an actual chrome bumper. Look at the edge here, how it connects. It's just a beautiful thing. Look at this cover. It doesn't cover the whole thing like modern cars. You still have openings, but you do have to remove it for, say, an oil change. Not for the drain. We've already done an oil change here. But look where the filter is, and look how massive this filter is. It looks like a diesel filter. Here is that oil filter. Show you a little shot of the old filter we took out of it. It's just massive behemoth. Oil pan is huge. And that's something. This thing holds 9 quarts of oil, 5W30. Is a lot for Toyota in those times. Now let's look at the finer details. Aluminum subframe in 1997. This was unheard of the time. And then we look at the front suspension. Look how simple this is compared to modern cars that we look at. It's very simple suspension. Wishbone at the top. Air shock, of course, this has air ride, and then very simple control arm here. This one is connected to it, and that's it. Very, very basic. And then you have this giant. This is something Lexus also does in this era. This giant backing plate. This is meant to draw air here to cool the brakes. Tiny brakes because this is what they used to do, and this is not a sports car. 4-piston caliper in the front, similar to that of the LS400. Pretty simple design, nothing over the top, because we don't need to be over the top here. But look at this V12. I want to show you one thing very interesting about the V12. So we come around, here's that upper oil pan, goes all the way here. I mean, this is massive, this engine. But you remember your V8s, so the LS400, for example, started underneath the intake manifold because it's an airplane engine and all that stuff. And then the following V8 with the LS460, it's all the way to the side, horrible location. V12, you would think this is like impossible to get to. I'm sorry, we can do this in our driveway on jack stands. Right here, 1 bolt, 2 bolts, starter comes out. Why can't they figure it out, the V8 like this? This is so simple. I love it. Look at this rack and pinion. The easiest rack and pinion to replace on the planet. Just 4 bolts, steering shaft, lines, it's out. Super simple. This is what I want you to see about this. Even though this car is like the absolute bespoke car, they didn't complicate things here. It's just very basic. Transmission, it's a 4-speed automatic transmission. Very basic. Dipstick, there's all the way at the top, there's a dipstick transmission. Very simple. It has this very familiar brace. exhaust, dual exhaust that merges into one. And this is another Lexus, something you'll see with Lexus. They have this big rod that connects from the shifter to the actual side of the transmission. Very, very basic. Now, something about the Japanese market cars in this era, they have a catalytic converter temperature sensor. You see that right here? That's something for their emission requirements, I'm assuming. And as we walk around, this is very similar to the LS400. You have the brake lines, the fuel lines are on two different sides. Then the exhaust comes to a muffler, and then to two more mufflers, just to make sure it's extra quiet, because the car does not need to be loud. And then we look at the rear suspension, also actually very basic. You have one big control arm at the top, a few arms at the bottom, and that's it. They kept it very, very simple. But you would not believe that the simple suspension can insulate this well. I mean, it's impossible. How do I show you on video? But I would love for you to drive one here. You can feel it. They're unbelievable how smooth they are for such an old car. That's the beauty of these. You look at this big differential right here. It's of course rear-wheel drive only. Just beautiful. Drive shaft all exposed. Nothing really complicated. All cable. Parking brake, mechanical of course, and just the build quality is just unbelievable. Now, something about Japanese imports, I should share with you a little bit here. They will paint cars underneath to hide rust. Now, this car only has 44,000 kilometers, which is nothing for these. But they did this. There was probably some surface rust here, and they wanted to give it a good rating in the auction, so they painted it. Same thing on the subframe, but this car basically has no rust. These rust pretty bad, so be careful with them if you're ever considering one. Now, having said that, let me share with you some of the stuff that brought this car to the shop. First thing is, they just bought it, and they literally drove it from the port here. They just put tires on it because the tires were horrendous and old. And then they were worried about the fluids. The fluids were actually all changed. The only thing we did was oil change. He brought us the filter. We have those filters. But the other thing is, we did an inspection. This actually needs nothing. We did note tiny seepage from the rack and pinion. Not something that we're super concerned about at the moment, but I told him start shopping around for one basically. If not, we'll see what we can do with this one. Radiator is original, and the hoses, at some point we're going to have to replace them. But the other thing that we did, front sway bar bushings were worn. We did right here, they're from an LS400. We did those, but that's about it. Filters, air filters, cabin filter. Actually, the cabin filter, he replaced it as soon as we got the car, the owner of this car. He had to use an aftermarket one, so he didn't want that. So we put an original charcoal activated one from an LS400. Air filters, they were not from an LS400. Forgot what was the model, but it's through Toyota. You can put the same part number. And a few odds and ends. We installed that VHS player we looked at. We installed that pole, which is a little nerve-wracking because you have to drill through the bumper, but we got it. It was not very difficult because it's an original accessory. It fits perfect. It just looks beautiful. And he wanted the subwoofer removed. Just little stuff, nothing really. Wipers, I think, oh, by the way, if you own a Century, if you want original OEM wipers, they're the same size as 15, like 11 to 15 Tacoma. They're the same size wipers, so we just buy them from the dealership. They're OEM wipers, and they fit perfectly, and life is good. But this car doesn't actually need much although it has low miles, but it's old. Fluids are good, they've all been serviced. I don't have any issues with this. I mean, little stuff, sway bar bushings, oil changes, filters. That's really all that's needed. Everything else were customizations for the owner. And that is the Century. What a beautiful car. This video does not do it justice. The last thing I will share with you is something about imported cars. When they import these, they don't transport them usually in the best way possible. So we have this big scrape here. The owner was really concerned about. We're going to coat it a little bit just to protect it. Same thing on this side. This is from transport. You see it's a clear scrape. It scraped some of the material that these have on them. Because if you look here, this is what they used to do in the olden days. They used to cover everything all the way with this material. It looks like undercoating, but I think it looks like also like seam sealer. But they scraped it all across, but this is gone now. You can see it here crumpled up. So we're gonna see, there's that piece. We're gonna coat this up just so it wouldn't rust, and we're good. Now finally, let's talk about how is it like to own one of these in the US in 2024. I don't own one, which is definitely my bucket list. If you guys can do some convincing the owner of this one, I'd love to own this one. It's beautiful. So let me first tell you something about the Century that is, there's good news, bad news. The bad news are this. Before I say that, how many do you think they made of these from 97 to 2016? That's a 19-year span. I'll give you a second to guess in the comments, and while you think about that and guess, let me tell you another figure. Doing a little bit of research here, don't quote me on these exact numbers, but they are averages. Toyota in the world, every day they sell around 24,000 cars. Give or take. In the US, that number is around 5,100, something like that. Again, don't quote me on the exact number, but it's an average. How many Centuries did they actually make in 19 years? And there comes the biggest problem with the Century. Did you know that they made 9,573 Centuries in 19 years? So that's an average of just over 500 units a year. That's how long it took them to make this, because they don't just automate factory, let's just ship them out the door next to the Camrys and the Avalons and the Lexus LS. No, they did not. These were handmade. They spend an eternity making these. So that makes them very rare. I mean, think about it. There's only just over 9,500 of these in the world in existence. How many of those got crashed, stolen, destroyed, stripped away for parts, V12 taken out of them? So how many of them are rotted, done for? So that just gives you the idea of how rare they are. And how many people in Japan actually own these and will never let them go, no matter what happens. That's how rare this car is, folks. It is such a flagship. And with that come the challenges of service, especially in the US. See, the problem is this is such an understated car, purposefully, that most folks will look at it, they'll be like, it's just an old Toyota, what's so hard about it? That is very mistaken attitude to go into a car like this. This car, in my shop, and the few Centuries that we worked on, the owners will remember that conversation. You drop it off, this is what we tell the customers. You drop it off, we talk, and then you delete our number, and I'll contact you if I need something or it's done. That's how this works. Because you cannot go into this handmade car that is just beautiful in a rush. You just can't do that. And on top of that, the ones we're getting, they are older because 25-year import law. And you can't just, oh, I broke this clip, I broke this panel, oh, let's just go get one from the dealer. What dealer? In Japan? Even those, yeah. The good thing is, though, and this is props to Toyota for this, not Toyota USA, Toyota Japan. They are really proud of this car, and this car is very important to them. They actually make majority of the parts for it. I mean, there are little things that will astound you that you could still find for this car, and a 10-year-old car that are discontinued. This is an original accessory that the owner of this car, when they bought it, they actually bought that from Japan, from a dealership. They're still making that. I mean, that is such an insignificant part. It's an accessory. They still make that. Same thing with the pouch that the key comes in. Such a beautiful pouch with an insignia. They still make that original. He actually bought the bases, the seals of the mirrors. They still make them original. And so far, every part that I've wanted to find for these, they're available. Majority of the kind of consumables, you know, brakes, some of the suspension stuff, some of the air suspension to a point, is LS400 parts. Not that this uses those. No, the LS400 borrowed it from this, because this is the main one. But everything bespoke to this, which there's a lot bespoke to this, starting with the engine, for example, they still make parts for it. And this engine is very, very overbuilt and reliable. I mean, biggest stuff we've had to do with these is valve cover gaskets. They love to leak from age. But replacing the spark plugs is kind of a Yeah, a little project and a half. It's not difficult, but it's just there's a lot that has to come off, and you have to be careful with everything. But they are very reliable, but they still need their service. So if you plan to own one of these cars, you need to first find, if you're not going to be fixing it yourself, they're somewhat DIY friendly. Not the most friendly in the world, but they are. You have to figure out who's going to fix it for you, because you can't just take this car and expect it to behave the same and be the same, and it will be a crime to take it to somebody who doesn't care. You got to factor that in, and every single part you need that is not regular consumable, that are LS400 parts, you have to order them out of Japan. So you have to have that line. We have, over the time that the shop has been open, I've built a lot of relations, and we're able to get parts for these, because it is one of my bucket list items now. It become first to own one. I don't own one yet. It's really on the list, and Mrs. Carr cannot forgive me. It's coming, so be ready for it. And the second thing is, I want to really specialize in these. I feel like we're gravitating towards like LS400s, LS430s, 460s. We work on a lot of these. This one is kind of the next step up, and I would like to be kind of a specialist in these in the US, and we're heading that way. We're starting to see more of them here in the shop. We're starting to really build the networks and have some parts available, and kind of build the system so we can service these. But just be careful if you own one of these. That's all I'm going to tell you, because what's special about these is the way they're built, and if you're not careful, that's going to go away, and then you just have a very nice living room. That's what I'll tell you about it. But folks, I hope now that if you see one of these on the street, it's a very rare sight, by the way, but if you see one in the street, you appreciate what it is, that it's not just some old Crown with weird mirrors. This is a Century, and it's a V12 Century. It's the one and only V12 Century, and Toyota V12. And I hope you enjoyed this tour around it, and if you plan to buy one, we can service them here. But if you are far away, whatever the case, they are somewhat DIY friendly. There are a few channels that are of enthusiasts that service them, and they show you stuff, so that's really cool. But have a plan buying one of these, and definitely don't daily drive them, because there's very few of these in the world. You don't want to get it rusty, and that's the other problem. They rust a lot. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out my other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.